So we can be fully cognizant of how many challenging things we are confronting through COVID and the holidays and everything else that's going on. And it sometimes is challenging to know how to bring our spiritual principles to bear when we are in the middle of these challenging times or in a challenging moment. Karen and I have talked about this over the holidays as things are really changing. And and you've been preparing for this for a long time. So talk about how this has been for you.
Yeah. So I've been preparing and planning for a holiday trip over Thanksgiving for several months now. Yet another dream photography trip where we could drive and it felt safe and all that. And so I have been reading books specifically on this location. I had been practicing to...
Are you going to tell us about this location?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. I've been practicing here in the Dallas area with specific like white pelicans and all these things because we were planning on going to a place called Bosque del Apache in New Mexico. And it's like the photographer's and bird watcher's dream with over 30,000 snow geese and sandhill cranes taking off. And I've been holding this vision. And then recently, as many of you know, the governor of New Mexico basically closed down the state, and it's a stay-at-home measure. And that lasts through Thanksgiving weekend.
And it's, of course, happening all over the country.
Yes. And so the disappointment came. It came pretty heavy and hard, and we canceled, the plans for that. And it's this pandemic speaking again in my life, and I know all of our lives. I know many of the people here in our community cannot go see their families, and the feeling that they're going through of not being able to travel to see their families this holiday, and there's just all kinds of things up with this pandemic.
Right.
So, and many of us, quite honestly, aren't we like getting zoomed out? So this personal touch. So I needed to turn to something in order to help me move through this because it wasn't going to change, at least not right now. And so I turned to a spiritual tool that actually is working for me, and I'm using gratitude to deal with it. Gratitude to help me move from this huge oh man disappointment into a very different spot. So first of all, I did allow myself to have that moment of, oh man, this is like, I can't once again believe it's happening again. And then I consciously said, okay, I've got to find a way to shift this. And I started a different perspective by saying, well, what am I grateful for in this moment? Well, okay, I'm grateful that we still get to spend Thanksgiving together. I'm grateful that I can be creative. What else can we do? I'm grateful, actually, that I found places close to Dallas where I can still have an experience. Even in the practicing of this trip, I found a place an hour and 15 minutes north of Dallas called Hagerman's Wildlife Refuge, where I've seen 3,000 snow geese, which was pretty incredible. And so I'm grateful that I'm healthy. I'm grateful for our family. I'm grateful for this community, and that's what I started to do. I actually began with gratitude talking to myself. I had the conversation with myself. Well, what am I grateful for? What can I focus that gratitude on? What can I become grateful for this holiday weekend, and how I can utilize it now? And so I was my own spiritual coach, coaching me through this over the past few days. And it really has worked.
Yeah, and not being able to go to this beautiful place may be a first world problem, but it is indicative of the challenges and changes that we're experiencing. And whether it's not being able to go on vacation because of the state being shut down, whether it's not being able to be with family members because they've lost their lives, whether it's a change in our financial situation, whatever the challenge is, no matter how dark the night might feel, the truth is, gratitude is one of the most extraordinary spiritual practices that we can bring to bear. And I know people often talk about, well, I'm going to go meditate and then I'll be peaceful, or, and that's great. Or I'm going to go do a spiritual mind treatment and I'll feel better. And that's true too. And yet in the moment of that deep disappointment or an ongoing challenge and frustration that just feels like it goes on and on and on and on, one of the most profound spiritual tools we have is to reach for gratitude. Mm-hmm. Now, Karen really talked about, well, how do you apply gratitude as a spiritual principle? Well, quite frankly, you do what Karen said. You talk to yourself. I talk to myself all the time. Really? How long are you going to sit on this pity pot? How long are you going to complain? How long are you going to talk about, I hate Zoom, I hate this, I hate that, I don't want this, and I don't like that, right? How long am I going to give that energy? And I love that. You said coach. We can coach ourselves into where is there opportunity for gratitude. Gratitude is this profound spiritual practice that shifts our awareness and therefore shifts our consciousness. What happens when we are sucked into a challenging time, whatever kind of challenging a time it is, financial, physical, relationship, the pandemic, the cultural situation, when we're sucked into the challenging time and we become we go inside it as if that's the only reality. Do you see, Thomas Troward calls that living by the law of averages. We're basically living an unconscious life on autopilot. And when we're doing that, we are subject to the law of averages. We are subject to just sort of the unconscious way in which the patterns and belief systems of individually or culturally or humanly are played out. And that's what we're going to get. That's what we're going to keep getting to experience over and over and over again. Gratitude is this, almost simplistic opportunity where we get a hold of the idea that we are able to raise ourselves out of the law of averages by using this as a spiritual tool, which means that the I that I am, I'm going to take charge. I'm going to decide what's going to create my life. I'm going to decide what I'm focusing on. The I that I am, not the ego I, not the little I, but the I that I am is going to say, and there is still good. There is still good to be had. Now, sometimes we can look at the thing itself and say, I'm going to be grateful for it because it has woken me up. But that's not always required. Sometimes it's, I don't know how to be grateful for that, but here are all these other things I am grateful for. And, it's that old count your blessings thing. And it is a deliberate shift in consciousness. It is such a profound spiritual practice. It changes us vibrationally. It changes us energetically. Mm-hmm. It changes the words that we speak out loud. It changes the way in which we view our lives. It changes the way in which we are thinking about our lives. And all of that changes the direction we're giving the universal law to co-create the next moment, the next moment, and the next moment. Mm-hmm. So gratitude isn't just something simple that we learned from our mother or our grandmother, go to bed and count your blessings. It is an extraordinarily spiritual act, a deliberate opportunity for us to raise ourselves out of autopilot, out of unconscious reactional engagement with life into a truly deliberate way of finding the good, praising it, being grateful for the good that we have in our lives, and seeing what profound shift that makes, and how we get to experience the next moment and the next moment completely differently.
It was beautiful. And yeah, so gratitude is a powerful tool that we absolutely don't have to stay in the this is challenging mode, right? So, Petra, what is a challenge that you're in the midst of? And how can you use this spiritual tool of gratitude in this particular situation? So I'm going to want you to answer it, and after you do, we'll see what comes next.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
Well, the challenge that I particularly find myself in these days, we've certainly talked about it, you all are experiencing it too, it is this monumental learning curve around technology. Not only is it the Zoom technology, it's taking all of our services and everything online. Before that, we had a massive cyber attack. So we had to change out our servers from, local drives to cloud technology, which meant we have an entirely different internal system. So while we were trying to learn how to do everything online that we are presenting, we're also trying to learn how to do everything differently in the office itself. And boy, I have to tell you that it's been challenging, and there have been times when I have felt, overwhelmed and almost incapable of rising to the challenge of all the requirements of all this technology.
Okay, so now I want you to use the spiritual tool of gratitude in this situation. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And I want you to share, in thinking about this situation, all the things that you are grateful for. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Okay. Well, and this is truly what I've done for the last 6-8 months, right? I'm grateful that there is technology to be used. I'm grateful for people on our staff like Ryan and Shakira. I'm grateful that Jason showed back up to do our sound. I'm grateful that Oscar and Karen and Richard and the band that we've learned together. I'm grateful that you all have watched. that you're still there, and that we actually occasionally get lovely emails or texts or whatever. I'm grateful that it feels as though CSLDallas has stayed alive, despite the fact that sometimes I have felt paralyzed and unable or unskilled or untrained. I'm grateful for training. I'm grateful for the training that I've been able to get. I'm grateful for the people who've been patient with me. And I'm grateful that I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that if I will just know that Spirit is showing up, that Spirit shows up. I'm grateful to know that when I simply decide, by God, I'm going to handle this, that the universe shows up for me. I'm grateful for my silly affirmation that I have now been using for God knows how many months. Technology is my friend. Technology is my friend. Of course, now everybody on the staff, when we're tearing our hair out, we all go, technology is my friend. Technology is my friend. Right? And at least, if nothing else, it makes me laugh. And so I'm grateful for the lightning that comes with that laughter. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm not like, I'm going, technology is my friend. Apparently that's a Cabbage Patch thing, which I didn't even know, which just cracks me up even more, right? Which even lightens it again. And I'm grateful for that when I feel light, like there's a spiritual truth to that, right? When I feel light, then the light can get in. And then I feel like I'm grateful that my intuition shows up and it helps me. And I'm grateful that 2 minutes are over.
Beautiful. Great. All right. You did really well. That was 2 minutes.
So, okay, good. So now it's your turn.
Okay.
So I told Karen that I was going to think of a question, but I wasn't going to tell her what the question was. Yeah, it's an important one, right? So the question is, I don't even know I can ask this question. When we drove up and back to the cabin, and you got to see your dad, and you told me when we left him this last time that this might be the last time that you say to be able to hug him. That's a challenging time. Right? That's a challenging thing. And how do you apply your gratitude to this very challenging thing that's coming down the pike that you know is coming down the pike with your dad?
I told her to get ready, that it was going to be something, so here you go, 2 minutes. Wow! I am so grateful that I've had a father in my life that from the moment I took my very first breath has shown up as unconditional love, unstintingly, unabashedly, has always been in my camp and in my corner. I'm grateful that my father has never been anywhere close to being inappropriate, physically, sexually, mentally, that he has not ever been violent or physically with me in any shape, form, or fashion, that he has shown up fully present, has let me talk about anything with him that came up in my life, any situation, any circumstance, anything. He's been my greatest cheerleader, my best friend, my confidant, my parent, my coach, my cheerleader, and even right up to conversations for years about him dropping his body, and that we celebrate that. We've had conversations about conversations with God, and I called them conversations with Scott, and he cooked me breakfast every morning, and Christmas morning breakfasts in his house robe are great memories. I wish everyone had a parent like this, at least one in their life. He just shoots the moon. There's nothing that I could say that could even come close to how grateful I am for James Scott Fry, my father in my life. Wow.
And I'm grateful that you call him every day. That right now you call him every day. So do you see, gratitude isn't just for first world problems, and it's not just for the easy stuff. And that's a hard spiritual practice. You got to dig deep to find those things. And it doesn't mean the tears aren't right. It doesn't mean the tears aren't true. It doesn't mean the grief or the hurt or the upset or the frustration or the anger isn't real. We have those moments, and then we take the time to dig deep, and we look at what we're grateful for. And not only do we shift consciousness that way, but we don't miss it, right? We don't miss the good, the beautiful, and the true that is, in fact, always already happening.
So here's what we want you to do as often as you can. Don't do 2 minutes. Do at least 4, 7, even better. Mm-hmm. There have been times in challenging circumstances and situations, Petra and I have been on a walk, and I will ask her a question, and she'll use the gratitude practice. It's actually helped us when we've been a little gritchy with each other, and moments in our relationship, especially like in the beginning and then in our marriage, and new things come up in our life, and we'll go for a walk, and I'll just out of nowhere, just bring out my phone and say, you got and vice versa. And it does change everything. And I'm grateful that you asked me that question, because my father's going to get to see this. I'll make sure of it.
What are you grateful for?
We're grateful for you, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. I'm so grateful for you in this community, and that you're supporting us so much, every single one of us that's connected. You're supporting Richard right behind this camera right now, doing what he loves to do in his passion. And I'm just so grateful for all of us that we still stay together as a community, no matter what.